Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Dimes and Buckets podcast on the weekly Armchair Sports Talk Network. We have got a great show for you today.
Oh.
It's it to Jenkins for the championship.
I promise you I can talk, folks. I really do. As I said, great show today. I'm back with Greg. Rach is joining us as well, and we're gonna kick on here and really get into Game 3 and 4 of the NBA Finals. Greg, you and I broke down Game 1 and 2.
Yep.
The Suns taking a 2-0 lead in the series as the series moved back to Milwaukee, and lo and behold, here we are sitting 2-2. But first of all, how are you guys doing? Haven't talked. It's been a bit.
Good.
We were sort of talking pregame about something that took place at the weekend in international football, which we won't talk about. But how are you guys doing?
Good. I think we've both got the weather this week, don't we, Rach? We've both had sun all week, so
it
good
is absolutely.
Good vibes, don't we?
I'll tell you what, though, my window last night, we broke it, and now it doesn't open in our bedroom. So we were trying to open the window, and the handle just like snapped. And I kind of looked at my partner and I was like, oh, fuck. And it's literally 26 degrees here today. And we've literally got every other window in the house open with like a fan trying to blow through cold air. But it's unbearable. So that's how my day's going. So that's hence this. So.
Well, that's a good segue, Rach. As you talk, and Greg, you also talk about things heating up over there. Things have been heating up in this series. Before we get into breaking down the games, folks, if you like the content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We got loads of stuff coming up. We'll might as well promote it now. We're back Sunday with our regular show to look at sort of things going around the NBA. Of course, news breaking today with a certain Portland Trailblazer, which we'll get into on Sunday as well. But yeah, folks, please turn on the notification bell so that you know when we go live and to get all the great content coming out on this channel. There's lots of stuff coming up. But we're here today to talk about the NBA Finals, and we'll start with Game 3. And like I said, you guys have touched on the heat over there. A lot of heat in the series in terms of individual performances. And I think really for me over the last two games, that's sort of what has stood out. Players on both teams who have sort of upped their game, come to play. Start with Game 3, and of course, Milwaukee going back to Milwaukee down 2-0, and Milwaukee ends up taking that game 120-100. Giannis Antetokounmpo coming up with 41 points and 13 rebounds, shooting a blistering 60% from the field, 14-23 from the field. Just a monster game for him. And the thing that stood out for me with that game too is 17 trips to the foul line for Giannis, and he made 13 of them. So, improving, obviously shot 76% from the foul line, which obviously was an improvement. But let's start with Game 3 and, sort of what coming into that game, what were your expectations? What did you think had to happen for the Bucks to get back into this series? Come to you first, Greg.
Well, Giannis had to really sort of take over, and he had to be the one to drive, as he always is with this Bucks team. He's the one that drives them forward. He's the one that, I think over the last couple of games especially, he's been setting hard screens and allowing people to come off those hard screens really well rather than just sort of fading and being really effective on the switch. In that third game, he was really good. He switched so many times on it when Cam Payne was in the game and Cam Johnson as well. He did really well at switching on them in the pick and roll. And then when he did, he absolutely battered them. And he stopped. He just stopped being that. He's not trying to be a 3-point shooter. Like, he's just being dominant and driving his way into the paint and making sure he's getting second chance points as well. Like we said that in the first two games, it looked like Phoenix were the team that were playing the NBA Finals, and it looked like Milwaukee were still in like normal season mode because there just was no hustle at all for second chance points, rebounds, anything like that. And Giannis needed to have the game that he did, and then that obviously carried over into Game 4 that we'll obviously talk about in a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rach, when you look at what Phoenix did in that game, Chris Paul, 19 points, 9 assists. Devin Booker, 10 points, 2 assists, 6 rebounds. Certainly with what took place in Phoenix in games 1 and 2, where, Greg and I talked about the guard play in those 2 games from Phoenix was just phenomenal. 29 points between the 2 of them and 11 assists. Milwaukee really did a good job of calming them down in game 3. And really, as those 2 players go, certainly it's as Phoenix goes, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, completely. Sorry, I just had to keep muting myself because there's a dog outside and he just keeps barking. It drives me mad. Like,
dogs are barking.
So drives me mad. I feel like you touched on it before. The Bucks didn't even at the start of game 3.
Yeah.
It still didn't even look like they were in a finals. It took them so long to actually get into it and to kind of realize, okay, we're down 2-0. We really need to start kind of fighting for this, because if you lose your first game at home, like, it's all well and it's like tennis, isn't it? You're expected to win your serve matches, you're expected to win your home matches. So I think they had to come out and they had to prove a point, which they did in game 3. They had a very, very slow start, but they really proved it. I thought Holiday stepped up massively. I thought Ayton as well. Although he's obviously amazing defensively, I felt like they really targeted him in this game, because they know that's how you get the frees, and that's how you get the fouls. So I thought they really, really targeted him in game 3, especially, and that's how they got most of their points. But Devin Booker, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Devin. I think he's class, but. Am I right in thinking this is his first finals?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
So I think there's so much expectation on him because of how incredible he has been and how high his numbers have been. So when he drops below that, there's a lot of kind of, angst about his performance and everything. So he's set it so high that he needs to keep up that pace. But we do have to bear in mind that it is a very inexperienced, and him and Paul as well, they've never been in the finals before, which is something that experience is needed in a finals, any sport.
I think they'll struggle next year. Like, I don't think Paul stays, because the amount of money he could be offered from like a New York Knicks or like another team. And I know the Suns team have been good, but the Suns team, every team that they've played in the playoffs leading up to the finals, there's been either the team's best player or second best player missing.
Yeah.
Like, they played the Lakers without AD and 1 game without LeBron. They played Denver without Jamal Murray. They played the Clippers without Kawhi. And if Chris Paul wasn't to resign, like, you were probably at the same stage as the Bucks were at last year, where they need to make a big trade for someone to come in and help Devin Booker, because you need multiple superstars to win an NBA championship, unless you're Giannis, because in the last 2 games he's shown that he could probably do it on his own.
Also, in the first 2 games as well, with where the Suns went up, they were playing against, you say how they were missing key players, they were playing against a Bucks that didn't have a fully healthy Giannis.
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously we've seen now that he's kind of turned it up and he's kind of got back into the flow of things. I know he was still putting up numbers in those games, but you've seen his class the past 2 games, games 3 and 4, 100%.
He's really gone from strength to strength this series, hasn't he? Rach, you touched on something there, which was a good point, and you touched on the secondary scoring in game 3, which, in the playoffs, I find even with a star, you need that secondary score. You have to have it. So I feel like you look at Jrue Holiday, you touched on it in that game. He's been relatively quiet this series, but in game 3, you're talking about Jrue Holiday with 21 points and 9 assists. Just a really good secondary option from him in game 3.
Yeah.
2 seconds. Something's.
Yeah, I just had to mute there for a second. But like I said, secondary option, secondary scoring from Jrue Holiday. Do the Bucks need? Do they need, like, it's now a 3-game series? We'll get into game 4 in a minute, but do they need Jrue Holiday to step up more the rest of the way? I mean, we know Middleton can be inconsistent, consistent. Obviously, he was terrific last game and efficient scoring. But even in game 3, look at 18 points and 6 assists. They really need one of those players, don't they, to step up and become that secondary scorer if they're going to win this series, don't they?
I don't think Holiday can. I don't think that's in Holiday's locker to take over and be that sort of secondary scorer. Like he's so good on defense and he helps them so much on defense. That you saw that in game 4 as well with that one-handed block and things like that you had late on against Chris Paul. But I don't think he's got the capacity to be that secondary scorer. I don't think he's ruthless enough to be the secondary scorer either. To be a secondary scorer on a team, more so than just being like the number one option, is not only are you got to take shots, but you're taking shots away from the number one scorer. And Middleton did that so well in game 4. I don't think Holiday has the capacity to do that in his game. That's why I said when he was first brought in, I thought it was a weird signing because they needed scoring, they didn't need more defense. And he's been fine, but he's not. I don't think Holiday. I don't think this year. I don't think the Bucks are here because of Drew Holiday. I think they're here because the team's a year older and the coach is a year older with the team. And Giannis has signed his extension and he's a year older and a year more experienced as well. I don't think it comes down to they got Drew Holiday, so that's why they're here.
No, I do think that Middleton needs to stay a little bit more consistent though, because we've seen that he'll have an absolutely insane game and then he'll have one where he just kind of plateaus and he just kind of, like plods along a little bit. But when he turns it up, he turns it up. But he needs to just do that on a little bit more of a consistent basis for me to be, for the Bucks to kind of contend on a year-on-year basis. But I mean, I like Chris Middleton. I think he's got the potential to be one of the big boys, 100%. But he just needs to work on his consistency a little bit more.
You look at the job the Bucks did too defensively the last 2 games. I mean, we touched on the guard play a little while ago, but the guard play, I know Booker in game 4, obviously he had, tremendous game from him, over 40 points. But, when you look at what Bucks were able to do in game 3 on Booker and Chris Paul, but then also in the fourth quarter, when you look at the opposition field goal percentage for Phoenix, and that they were able to clamp down and hold the Suns to 36% shooting. I know Booker, Booker only played 7 minutes in the fourth quarter in game 4, but held him to, I think, 2 of 6 shooting in the quarter. And I mean, Chris Paul really non-effective. They've really done a tremendous job at home in making adjustments to contain those two, haven't they?
They've taken out Chris Paul's mid-range, and that's what they did so effectively in game 4, is they crowded Chris Paul so much that you had to kick out to one of the role players. And if Devin Booker hadn't shot sort of 1,000% from contested shots, which seems to be all he did in game 4, every time Booker went for a shot, he seemed to be contested by 1 or 2 people, and everyone went in. It was like Kobe-esque shooting selection. In terms of I'm surrounded by 3 people, but I'm still going to put up the shot, and he still made them. I just think they've done so well at nullifying Chris Paul. Because to everyone, I know with the way the league is now, you've got Lillard, you've got Curry, and you've got all these big 3-point shooters. People seem to think the mid-range is a bad shot. Yeah. But the Chris Paul, if he can get 13 to 15 shots a night in the mid-range, he's going to be making over 60-70% of those, or he backs himself to do that.
We all know about that with DeMar DeRozan, don't we? He made a living from the mid-range, didn't he?
Exactly. You don't need to be a 3-point shooter always, and they've done so well at just crowding him out so much that he has to kick it out. Yeah. And because he's their main facilitator as well, Ayton's been less effective because Ayton plays so well because Chris Paul's there. Ayton's already said that Chris Paul was the best thing happened to his career and things like that. So when you nullify Chris Paul, you not only take him out of the game, you take Ayton out of the game as well. And that's what they've done so well, and they need to carry that on going into game 5.
Absolutely. And anything to add to that, Rach? Or
the thing is about the Suns is I feel like they've got a lot of fight in them. They have to kind of pull it back when they go back home now, and they have to kind of show that fight and that grit, because it's hard, because the Suns are, I don't want to kind of, kind of nullify them because obviously they're in the finals for a reason.
Right.
But they are quite
lucky.
I was going to say they've been very, very lucky, but I mean they do have fight. I think they need to win the next 2 games when they go back home. They need to certainly win Game 5 because I think if now that Milwaukee have got a sniff, I think they might be able to kind of tear them apart now, especially with Middleton hitting. Hopefully, like I said, he can stay consistent, and Giannis as well back to a little bit of form. Just hoping that they can kind of smell blood and tear them apart now.
Giannis played the 5 the other night as well, didn't he? He played centre, didn't he? And Brook Lopez kicked out to power forward, which probably again helped them.
Yeah, for sure. And might as well get into Game 4. So I think we've pretty much touched on everything from Game 3. Folks, if you are watching, please get in the comments. Give us your thoughts on the 2 games. Let us know what you think about Game 3 and 4, and also what you're thinking for Game 5. Greg's cooling himself down. He's doing the Devin Booker. Feels like he's roasting. I'm going to call you Devin Booker.
I couldn't believe how good he was in Game 4.
I was just going to say, I mean, you look at Booker's line, 42 points in 38 minutes. He had 18 in the third quarter. 60% from the field on 17 of 28 shooting. So, I mean, just lights out. And 8 for get to the foul line 9 times and shot 88% from the foul line. So 8 of 9. Just a tremendous game for him. Like some of the shots he was hitting, he hit a shot in the first half. I remember where, like for me anyway, one of the toughest shots in basketball is that curling when you're coming off a screen and curling, and you gotta get your feet and your shoulders square to the basket quickly. It's just a difficult skill, but I mean, he just makes it. He's hitting contested shots like that too. It's just ridiculous. The shots that he was sitting. Yeah. The thing where I think it went off the rails for Booker a bit was when he picked up his 5th foul and he had to come out of the game. I feel like it sort of disrupted his rhythm a bit because, and I tweeted it out from the Dimes and Buckets, the comparison between Dimes and Buckets Twitter handle, the comparison between Middleton and Booker in that fourth quarter, and Booker's shooting percentage dropped to 33%. He only played 7 minutes, but he just looked out of rhythm when he came back in. Whereas Middleton, 14 points in the fourth quarter. Again, for him getting to the foul line, a couple huge buckets, particularly off the Giannis block, which we'll talk about. But Booker for me, tremendous game, but he just fell off in the fourth quarter, and I feel like it was just because of that 5th foul.
Yeah, he should have fouled out as well.
Yeah,
he definitely had a 6th foul. He did, and maybe a 7th in the same play. He was like up and then had like his arm round the guy's waist as he jumped, and it was really straight. Like he definitely should have fouled out, but he was ridiculous. He was so good. And like I said, if he didn't shoot so well, because if you're Coach Bud and you're the Bucks and you go back and you watch that tape, there's not a lot more you can do to cover Booker in those scenarios. No, he wasn't getting wide open threes. Or wide open looks at all. So I feel like you can't go, that was a bad defensive night. It's just a good offense.
Good shooting night,
Yeah, but to be fair, you're 9 times out of 10, you're happy to limit people with shots like that, especially if you're taking out their secondary scoring options. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, when you look at, especially in that third quarter when Booker was going for the 18 points, they went to all kinds of different options on Booker, the Bucks, and the Suns just kept running pick and rolls for him and just feeding him, and it just got ridiculous. But then, Rach, and you look at the other side of the coin with Chris Middleton, and you look at the numbers he put up. So 40 points for him, 15 to 33 from the field, 45%, which that's fairly efficient. I think like when you're defending teams, you want to try to keep them in the playoffs to around 40% or under 40% as a team shooting. So Middleton above that average at 45%, 37% from 3. And then of course for him, 8 trips to the field, to the foul line, and 14. The most important thing, and we touched on it, is 14 points in the third quarter. So As inconsistent as Middleton has been, we saw him like he carried them through the Atlanta series basically when Giannis got hurt, but just a tremendous night from Chris Middleton, and really, was he the one that really put the Bucks over the top in that game, particularly in the fourth quarter?
In my opinion, the Suns themselves put the Bucks over the top in that game, because the amount of turnovers that the Suns had in that game it just felt like they were scoring from every single turnover. I think I counted it was 17 turnovers in the game from the Suns. 24 points the Bucks scored from turnovers. So they're so efficient in that way. It's very, very counter-attacking. Talking about football. It's very, very... But yeah, they were very, very efficient, and when it turned over, they made them pay. So I think the Suns were their own downfall, in my opinion. But I mean, Middleton definitely did put them to the sword. And I mean, we touched on it. That block from Giannis at the end was game changing. It was absolutely insane. That's what you love to see.
You make a good point with the turnovers, Rach. Obviously, 17 for the Suns, 5 for the Bucks. Chris Paul, 5 turnovers in the game alone. And that's been a theme for him this series, and it's certainly something that the Suns need to clean up, is the turnovers for sure. But yeah, we might as well, I mean, good time now to segue into the really game-saving block. A minute 13 left. And I don't think, I saw Skip Bayless on Twitter saying, Skip Bayless, of course, is the controversial pundit over here in the U.S. on ESPN, who said it really wasn't that something. It really wasn't that special. All he did was, it wasn't a great block. It was a lob. He had to get up there anyway. Contrary to what every other pro is saying, Skip Bayless never played pro. Let's put it out there. But contrary to what Greg Anthony, multiple pros, I mean, current players coming out and just in awe at the ability. And if you haven't seen it, go back and look at it. But just from a basketball standpoint, that play is just so difficult in terms of, first of all, he's in help defense. So he's guarding against penetration. The lob goes up. He's at the foul line. His foot is on the foul line when the ball goes up. He's got to drop, step, and pivot to get back to DeAndre Ayton, who's pretty much on his way up and like above the rim by the time Giannis even gets there. Then he's got to get up and he's got to block the ball. In terms of blocks or defensive plays in an NBA Finals, it's one of the best I've ever seen. How much of an impact do you guys put on that? Difficult play for you, I'm sure, but was that the game changer at the end for you guys?
Yeah, I think it just showed everything that the Bucks have been since they got back home. Like, everything, it seems to have kicked up a level from everyone. Like, there's extra effort from everyone, and like Rich said earlier on, that Giannis looks fully healthy, because you're not making that block not fully healthy. Bobby Portis also had one about 5 minutes before the end of the fourth as well, which is a really good block too. So it just showed like this. Milwaukee will believe now. They'll have the bit between their teeth and they'll be really going for it. And it just sums up sort of how they've played since they've gone back home.
I mean, you even saw it in game 2 a little bit as well, but they were starting to fight back, but they just couldn't grind it out and get that win in game 2 especially. But games 3 and 4, they've just absolutely turned it up. And I do think that they'll kind of get the bit between their teeth and kind of smell the fear a little bit and kind of, go on from here.
Yeah, absolutely. So the block happened at 1:13. Phoenix scores that. They go up 4. That Phoenix is going to get at least one possession, which they're probably going to run down. So now you're the Bucks having to score. It's a 2-possession game with really 45 seconds left, because Phoenix is going to have the ball for at least one of those possessions. So, but I think off that play too, I think off the block, the other good thing is he kept it in bounds. You'll see a lot of players who will go up and make that play and go for the showboat swat and try to, do the big flex after, but he keeps the ball in bounds. And then I think that started a fast break for Milwaukee where they go down, and I believe that's the play where Middleton made the layup. So just a game-changing play, 100%.
You've got to really appreciate it as well. Like, to make a block like that, like, even if you don't play professional basketball, you have to appreciate you only have to look at it and say, that's insane. The kind of athleticism and the desire and the grit to kind of get up there from where he was absolutely beautiful. I mean, I'm 5'2", and I could only dream of doing that when I used to play. Like the best I could do. I used to. You were saying about mid-range shots earlier. I would never shoot from three because my arms just aren't long enough. So I would always, get in the paint and get in the thick of it. So mid-range shots are absolutely pivotal. It's not just 3-pointers as we've seen in this series, because 3-point shooting is not as prevalent as what it used to be. But I mean, anyone that has a look at that block can say that it was game changing, because the amount of time that they had left, they would have gone up. I felt like they maybe could have scraped it, the Suns, if that block didn't occur. So
and if Chris Paul didn't drop the ball after that, with the next play, he literally just dropped it. But that must be his hand or something.
But that's again the Suns just being sloppy and turning it over. I thought they were so sloppy. So
they were horrible.
If they are to stand a chance in the next two games, that they need to kind of shore that up and stop those silly little turnovers.
Well, you touched on it, Rach. 24 points off turnovers. I mean, that's the Bucks won 109, 103. So you're almost looking at just under a quarter of their points. Like that just can't happen. Like you talked about. But as we'll look ahead quickly here to Game 5 before we wrap up. Just a quick half hour review here today, similar to the other ones that we've done for Game 1 and 2. But we will be back Sunday. Just want to remind everybody, of course, news breaking today that Dame Lillard has requested. He's scheduled to speak with the media today from the U.S. basketball camp in Las Vegas at 12:30. So that will be interesting to see what he says. But we will be back to discuss that and a lot more on Sunday. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and we will be back. But let's look quickly ahead to Game 5. Obviously, the series is poised now 2-2. Rach touched on it, going back to Phoenix. Best of 3 now, where I guess you would expect the Suns at home to come out on fire and really try to take this series back, because I think if you look at it historically, the team that wins Game 5 and goes up 3-2, they put themselves in a pretty good chance to win the series. How do you guys? I'll come to you first, Rach. How do you see Game 5 playing out?
I think the Bucks are going to have a bit too much for the Suns. I think, like I've touched on before, I do think they're going to have, kind of that fire in their belly now and just go for it. So, yeah, I'm going to say Bucks. I don't think it's going to be a landslide. I think it'll kind of be more a game of Game 4 than Game 3. So, yeah, I'm going to go Bucks.
How about yourself, Greg?
Yeah, I think the Bucks will win it as well. Like I said, I think the Suns are lucky to be in this position to obviously get to where they are. But I think if the Bucks have worked out how to stop Chris Paul, they've also worked out how to stop DeAndre, and Devin Booker's not going to shoot like that again. And yeah, they're playing really well. They've got the momentum now as well, and Giannis will be sensing that 2 wins and he's an NBA champion for Milwaukee, and everything he signed and everything he gave up last summer was worth it. So I can see the Bucks winning this sort of 4-2 now.
Well, no pun intended here, but I'm going to buck the trend and go with Phoenix. I think that Chris Paul, I think we'll see a resurgent Chris Paul in Game 5. I think he'll respond from what was a poor display turnover-wise, as well as efficiency in Game 4. And I'm going to say that Phoenix wins at home, and the team that has won all the home games in this series, the way the series is planned out, Phoenix, and then of course Milwaukee. I think that trend continues, and I'm going to go Phoenix to take a 3-2 lead. Game 5 tomorrow night in Phoenix. It's going to be interesting see how it plays out for sure.
Finally, I can actually watch one on a weekend. Like, you don't know how hard it is to watch highlights and listen to other podcasts of stuff because you've got work in the morning, so you can't exactly watch it. But I absolutely love weekend games. When Raps used to play, I always used to record it and watch it in the morning, just stay away from my phone and not look at the score. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of get that feeling back as well of actually watching it. So
it's kind of nice how things reverse, because for me, for football, it's opposite.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's kind of nice how things reverse a little bit.
100%.
But yeah, we will be back Sunday, like we said. We'll put the ad up on our Twitter page, but it'll be at 12 p.m. UK time, 7 a.m. here in North America. Early start for us here in North America, but you will be able to watch it, of course, be on YouTube. Go to the Weekly Armchair Sports Talk Twitter page. In the description, click the link for YouTube if you want to catch up on it, and I will tweet it out from the Dimes and Buckets Twitter account. So hopefully we see you then. Make sure you get involved on Sunday as well. We'd love to hear from you. And do you guys want to give a shout out to your Twitter handles there, or to your social media handles?
Go on.
No.
All right.
Mine is Raps with Rach, and I think it's a 7 at the end. I can't quite remember. But
yeah, it is.
Yeah, or it's Rach MUFC7 for football Twitter. Either one.
I know, Greg, you were taking a bit of a break from Twitter. If you don't want to shout out, don't worry about it.
Yeah, just can't really. I'll go through it occasionally, but I'm mainly trying to sort of stay off it. But if you want to follow, I might tweet more as like sort of the football season stuff starts, and maybe if Kawhi re-signs with the Clippers, I'll be a bit more active on that and a bit more happy. So it'll be at Greg_D_Chambers.
Awesome. And make sure you find follow the Dimes and Buckets Twitter handle. You can find us at Dimes Buckets Pod, at Dimes Buckets Pod on Twitter, and make sure you give us a follow, and we'll tweet out all kinds of stuff. We hope to have more guests coming up. I've reached out to some of the UK sort of fan pages, if you will, for various teams. So we'll have more guests coming on, more content. Got our show on Sunday. We'll have a draft special coming up. Watch along with the NBA draft. So things are kicking off. It'll be great. So we'll see you soon, folks. Take care.